my reading corner. But Ellen, you don't read. Chapter 3. Too Gross. Abby Jacobson and Ilana Glazer. All the gross stuff the bros of the league and workaholics do, Abby and Ilana of Broad City do worse. They stuff sachets of marijuana up their vaginas. They Skype during sex. They find condoms hidden inside them. They catalog their poops and live in rant-infested apartments and announce their thoughts in yoga. If a dude did any of these things, it'd be called epic, or legendary, or maybe just a casual hang with the guys. When a woman does it, it's unruliness in the highest degree. Or so the theory goes. In truth, the women of Broad City, co-stars Abby Jacobson and Ilana Glazer, aren't too gross for most people, especially not for the type of people who watch Comedy Central. Reviews, which are overwhelmingly positive, admit to its raunch, but revel in the show's depiction of New York, in the intimate female friendship of the protagonists, the gonzo surrealist structure of their adventures. The grossness in the show isn't for grossness' sake. Rather, it's a form of radical honesty and transparency. They simply talk about all the things that happen to women and few dare to say aloud, let alone on television. All of Abby and Ilana's unruliness, wading through the most abject corners of their bodies, their sex lives in New York City, is made possible by their liberty. They go where they want, take up space how they want, behave how they want, get stoned how they want. Usually those freedoms are reserved for the rich, or at least the very least men. Abby and Ilana's escapades are proof that white, middle-class, educated women operating in a multicultural, bourgeois, urban space can pretty much do whatever they want. They might get some funny looks, but they're ultimately free of consequences or the sort of pressures jobs, families, unattractive bodies that would curtail their control of their bodies and the space they fill with them. They're free, in other words, to be semi-worthless wastrels. Y'all know I can't read big words. Don't fucking look at me like that. It might sound like a dubious achievement, but it's a critical one. Men have long been represented in the fullest spectrum of sinner to saint in their refusal to submit to dominant cultural norms. Unruly women like Abby and Ilana help flesh out the spectrum of female representation that had previously been limited to the likes of evil prostitutes and Cruella de Vil. That is oddly specific as fuck, but I get that. The deeper unruliness of Broad City has less to do with shit and bongs and dicks and everything to do with the leisure time in which they are able to amuse themselves with any of the above. Abby and Ilana hang out, waste time, and refuse labor in the same manner as their male counterparts. And that far more than the general abjection that fills their days is what makes them a problem in need of solving. Over the course of Broad City's first 3 seasons, its protagonists have matured in the way that many people mature between ages 24 and 26. No one gave me the memo of that. The pressure to be something or be with someone increases, but only marginally. The pursuit of sex or weed or a wormhole of adventure remains the primary mode of existence, with pockets of work in between. Seeking the best way to hang out at all times, devoid the true responsibility, the entire city as your playground. It's the utmost in freedom and privilege. Oh my God. This type of freedom was, until fairly recently, only available to rich white men. Working class men rarely had time for that sort of unencumbered leisure. I told you, I'm sorry. But with the rise of the middle class and the white-collar job came the Wednesday afternoon golf game, the booze-soaked lunch. Working-class women labored both in and outside the home, while middle-class women, their lives supposedly liberated by the likes of the washing machine and the dishwasher, was still largely relegated to the suburbs, isolated in their homes, their time filled with caring for their children, their appearance, and their husbands. When middle-class women moved into the workplace, it was celebrated as women's liberation in practice. It meant that women simply doubled their labor. Women had greater control of their own finances and, by extension, their lives. But as late as 1990, they were still getting married at an average age of 23.9 and having their first child at the age of 24. To have it all generally meant laboring nearly constantly. The first shift at work, the so-called shift at home. Over the course of the 1990s, the age of responsibility, when people first married or the age of their first child, began to rise. In 2009, 46% of adults below the age of 34 had never been married, a 12-point jump from the decade before. And the longer the marriage and children are delayed or refused altogether, the longer women have to explore, switch careers, or to experience weekends and non-work times, not as time to serve others' needs but their own, or none at all. The more time they have, to put it bluntly, to fuck around. The ability to fuck around has long been the provenance of the very rich. Think of the characters in a Jane Austen novel, which I never read one, so y'all gonna have to hook me up on that. And by hook me up, I mean just show me a movie. Wait. Is Jane Austen who wrote Bridget Jones' Diary? I'm so stupid. I'm gonna have to double check. Y'all help me out with that one. Let me go back to the sentence and continue. The ability to fuck around has long been the provenance of the very rich. Think of the characters in a Jane Austen novel, filling their days with walks and teas and flitting around Europe. Starting with the so-called slackerism of the 1990s, it became the privilege of the children of the middle class. Highly educated kids in their 20s, clustered in urban areas, who came to understand labor as something that should always feel meaningful or fulfilling. You could perform non-meaningful, non-fulfilling labor while you waited for that other occupation to realize itself, but never as an end to itself. Factory jobs serving the man in the middle management. Service work is non-artisan restaurants. Those were jobs, not careers, and to be avoided at all costs. Even if it meant relying on parents to fund that dream or working for free as an intern at a place that did feel meaningful and fulfilling. I fucking hate this. Not the book. I just hate how real this shit is getting, and it's not making me happy. This is why I don't fucking read, y'all. Okay, anyway. The privilege to fuck around intertwines with the privilege to only accept labor that makes you feel good. That attitude is usually ascribed to the hazy swath of the American population known as millennials. Are we really gonna fucking do this right now? We're really gonna fucking do this? But it's a particularly raced and classed and educated sort of millennial, one whose ideas about work are often shaped by their parents, who desire more fulfilling work for themselves and the media, which limits to its fuck is this word? Conceptualization of desirable labor to that in creative fields. Enter Broad City and its creators. Jacobson and Glazer are textbook members of the millennial population described above. Jacobson grew up in a well-to-do suburb of Philadelphia. Most of my days, The daughter of an artist and a graphic designer. Okay, Lena fucking Dunham, like... Y'all knew I was gonna bring up Lena Dunham one day or another. I'm surprised I didn't read her fucking chapter first. And attended Maryland Institute College of Art, where she studied video production. Glazer grew up on Long Island, hell yeah, in a fairly standard Jewish middle-class household and attended NYU. Jacobson found her way to New York after college and following some lonely months in Queens, heard about the Upright Citizens Brigade, or UCB, the leading improv troupe in New York. Both she and Glazer, who was finishing up at NYU, tried to be part of the main troupe, but neither made the cut, finding themselves together on the UCB approximation of a farm team. Oh my god. They were paying for practice space and an improv coach and making essentially nothing money-wise. They really are millennials. I love this. And they had nothing tangible to show for it, or more specifically, to show their parents as the fruit of their labor. Jesus Christ. Okay. So, in 2009, the pair decided to produce a web series with themselves at its center and their New York, filled with similarly striving, hooking up, weed-smoking, educated 20-somethings as their set. The name Broad City both reappropriated the term broad, a historical pejorative for promiscuous women, and yoked it to the city, implying that the New York of the series isn't just filled with broads, but a city defined by them. Glazer described a broad as a full person, which is an appropriate reflection of the ethos of the series. Unruliness as the completion of personhood, not a perversion of it. The first episode, a 2-minute sketch that pitches the desire to donate only a certain amount to a homeless man against liberal guilt and not doing so, premiered in February 2010. Subsequent episodes on the ethos and DIY aesthetic that still structures the show. The inanity of bar conversation. I'm gonna take a break. Too many big words. But yes, that was me reading a book. I had to film it because I know no one will fucking believe me. And also, I would never really do it unless it was to get attention.